Have you ever found yourself looking back on a moment in your life and suddenly everything makes sense? Maybe it's a decision you made years ago, or a chance encounter that changed your path. In the moment it was confusing, maybe even overwhelming. But in hindsight, the pieces seem to fit together, as if you're finally reading the instructions after you've already built the furniture. This feeling of clarity arriving only after the fact is at the heart of a profound observation by the Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard. He once wrote, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." It's a simple statement, but it carries a weight that has echoed through generations. Why does this idea resonate so deeply with us? Perhaps it's because it captures the very essence of what it means to be human. We're all moving through time, step by uncertain step, never quite sure what the next day will bring. Yet when we pause and look back, we see patterns, lessons, and meaning that were invisible to us as we live them. Kierkegaard's insight isn't just a clever turn of phrase. It's a mirror held up to our experience, reflecting both the mystery and the beauty of our journey. In this conversation, we're going to explore why this paradox matters, not just as a philosophical curiosity, but as a guide for how we think, feel, and act in our everyday lives. We'll dive into Kierkegaard's world, but we won't stop there. We'll see how existentialist thinkers, psychologists, and even contemporary philosophers have wrestled with the same dilemma. Along the way, we'll ask, what does it mean to live with uncertainty? How do we find meaning when the future is always unknown? And is there a way to embrace this paradox rather than fight against it? To begin, let's step into Kierkegaard's world and see how his own life and times shape this unforgettable insight. To truly appreciate Kierkegaard's insight, we need to step back into the world he inhabited, a world of rapid change, uncertainty, and deep questioning. Søren Kierkegaard lived in 19th century Denmark, a time when old certainties were crumbling and new ideas were reshaping society. The Industrial Revolution was transforming daily life, science was challenging traditional beliefs, and the foundations of faith and identity were being questioned in ways that felt both exhilarating and unsettling. Kierkegaard himself was no stranger to anxiety and doubt. He was a thinker who felt the weight of existence in his bones, someone who wrestled with the big questions not just in his writing, but in his own restless heart. Kierkegaard's philosophy is often described as a response to the anxiety and uncertainty that define the human condition. He saw life as a journey through time, but not a journey where the path is clearly marked or the destination guaranteed. Instead, he believed we are always moving forward, propelled by the flow of time, unable to pause or rewind. This one-way movement means that we can never fully know what lies ahead. Every choice we make is a leap into the unknown, and every moment is shaped by possibilities we can't predict or control. For Kierkegaard, this uncertainty isn't just a minor inconvenience, it's a fundamental part of what it means to be alive. We make decisions without knowing their true consequences. We hope, we plan, we dream, but the future remains stubbornly out of reach. It's only when we look back that we begin to see how events connect, how choices led us here, and what meaning might be found in the twists and turns of our story. Yet even as we gain understanding in retrospect, we're always being pushed forward, called to act without the benefit of perfect knowledge. This tension between the desire for certainty and the reality of uncertainty shapes every aspect of our experience. It's what makes life both thrilling and terrifying, what fills us with hope and anxiety in equal measure. And it's this very tension that Kierkegaard believed we must learn to live with rather than resolve. But what does it really mean to live with incomplete understanding? And how does this shape the way we move through the world? Let's explore that next. So, if Kierkegaard's world was one of uncertainty and constant change, what does that mean for us as we try to make sense of our own lives? At the heart of Kierkegaard's insight is the idea that our understanding is always inevitably retrospective. We live our lives moving forward, but we only truly understand them when we look back. In one of his journal entries, Kierkegaard expands on this, writing that while life must be understood backwards, we often forget the second, more challenging truth. It must be lived forwards. He points out that there is never a moment when time stops, allowing us to step outside of our experience and fully grasp what's happening. Instead, we are swept along by the current of time, always in motion, never able to pause and see the whole picture. This means that in every moment, we are living with incomplete information. We make choices without knowing all the facts. We react to situations without understanding their full significance. And we move through life with a sense of ambiguity that can be both liberating and unsettling. Kierkegaard describes the present as a stream of becoming, a flow that we can never quite capture or hold still. The present slips through our fingers even as we try to define it. And by the time we think we understand what's happening, the moment has already passed. Living with this kind of uncertainty has profound implications for how we approach life. It challenges our desire for control, our need to plan, and our longing for certainty. We often try to map out our futures, to anticipate every possible outcome, and to make decisions that will guarantee our happiness or success. But Kierkegaard reminds us that this is, in many ways, a futile effort. No matter how carefully we plan, reality will always unfold in ways we can't predict. The future remains open, unknowable, and resistant to our attempts to pin it down. This perpetual uncertainty can be a source of anxiety, but it can also be a source of freedom. If we accept that we will never have all the answers, we might begin to let go of the pressure to control everything. We might start to see life not as a problem to be solved, but as an experience to be lived. And yet, this acceptance is easier said than done. The desire for certainty runs deep, and the fear of making the wrong choice can be paralyzing. So how do we navigate this tension? How do we live with the knowledge that we can never fully know what lies ahead? To answer that, let's turn to other thinkers who have grappled with the same existential dilemma. Kierkegaard's insight into the limits of understanding and the necessity of living forwards didn't just stay within the walls of 19th century Denmark. It rippled outward, influencing generations of thinkers who grappled with the same questions about meaning, choice, and uncertainty. One of the most poignant echoes of Kierkegaard's idea comes from the 20th century novelist Milan Kundera, whose work, The Unbearable Lightness of Being, explores the existential weight of our decisions in a world where each moment is unique and unrepeatable. Kundera writes that human life occurs only once, and that's precisely why we can never truly know whether our decisions are good or bad. In any given situation, we can only make one choice. We're not granted a second, third, or fourth life to compare different paths, to see how things might have turned out if we'd chosen differently. This is the lightness of being. There's no rehearsal, no do-over, no way to test our choices against alternative realities. Every decision is final, every path is singular, and the consequences are ours alone to bear. This existential problem deepens the anxiety of living forwards. It's not just that we lack information about the future, it's that we have only one shot at living our lives. The stakes feel impossibly high because there's no way to know if we're making the right move. We carry the responsibility for our choices, but we do so without the comfort of certainty or the ability to compare outcomes. This can make even the smallest decisions feel overwhelming, as if the entire weight of our existence rests on each moment. Yet this unrepeatability also gives our lives a kind of preciousness. Every experience, every relationship, every turning point is unique, never to be replicated. The anxiety of not knowing is matched by the beauty of living a life that is entirely our own. But how do we cope with this responsibility, this blend of freedom and uncertainty? To find some answers, let's look at how these existential insights shape our psychological well-being and our attempts to find control in an unpredictable world. As we move from the existential weight of our choices to the inner world of our emotions, it's clear that this uncertainty about the future doesn't just shape our philosophy, it shapes our psychology too. The knowledge that we can never fully know what lies ahead, that every decision is a leap into the unknown, naturally gives rise to anxiety. It's a kind of background hum in our lives, sometimes barely noticeable, sometimes overwhelming, but always present. We worry about making the wrong choice, about missing out, about what might have been if only we'd chosen differently. This anxiety isn't just a personal quirk, it's a universal feature of the human condition, something Kierkegaard understood deeply. In response to this anxiety, many of us try to seize control. We plan, we strategize, we try to anticipate every possible outcome. We tell ourselves that if we just think hard enough, research long enough, or prepare thoroughly enough, we can guarantee a good result. But as Kierkegaard and so many thinkers after him have pointed out, this quest for certainty is ultimately futile. Life is too complex, too unpredictable, to ever be fully tamed by our plans. The more we try to control every detail, the more we set ourselves up for disappointment when reality inevitably refuses to cooperate. This is where the wisdom of the Stoic philosopher Epictetus comes in. Epictetus taught that we should focus our energy only on what we can control and let go of the rest. He called this the dichotomy of control. According to Epictetus, insisting that reality conform to our desires is a recipe for frustration. Instead, we should accept that much of life is outside our control and direct our attention to our own actions, attitudes, and responses. In this way, both Kierkegaard and the Stoics arrive at a similar conclusion. The pursuit of certainty is a trap, and the path to peace lies in acceptance. But acceptance doesn't mean resignation. It means recognizing the limits of our knowledge and control and choosing to engage with life as it unfolds, rather than constantly fighting against its unpredictability. This shift in perspective can be liberating. It allows us to let go of the impossible task of solving life like a puzzle and instead focus on experiencing it as it comes. So if life isn't a problem to be solved, what is it? How might we approach our days differently if we embrace this uncertainty, not as a flaw, but as a fundamental part of being alive? Let's explore that idea next. So, if we accept that we can never fully control or understand life, the question naturally arises: how should we approach it? For many of us, the instinct is to treat life as a problem to be solved. We look for answers, strategies, and solutions, hoping that if we just figure out the right formula, everything will fall into place. But Kierkegaard, and those who have followed in his philosophical footsteps, invite us to consider a radically different approach. Instead of seeing life as a puzzle to fix, what if we saw it as a reality to be experienced? This idea, often attributed to Kierkegaard, is deceptively simple. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. It's a shift in mindset that asks us to let go of the need for certainty and embrace the unfolding of each moment. When we treat life as a problem, we're always searching for the missing piece, the perfect answer, the solution that will finally make everything make sense. But life, in all its complexity and unpredictability, resists being solved. The more we try to force it into neat categories or tidy narratives, the more it slips through our fingers. There's a certain futility in this endless quest for resolution. We can spend years chasing after the right career, the perfect relationship, or the ideal version of ourselves, only to find that the goalposts keep moving. The truth is, there will always be unknowns, always be surprises, always be moments that defy explanation. And that's not a flaw in the system, it's the very nature of existence. By shifting our focus from problem solving to experiencing, we open ourselves up to the richness of the present. We start to notice the small joys, the unexpected connections, the beauty in the ordinary. We become more attuned to what's happening right now, rather than being consumed by regrets about the past or anxieties about the future. This doesn't mean we stop caring or striving. It means we engage with life more fully, accepting its messiness and unpredictability as part of the adventure. As we begin to live this way, we might find that the pressure to have everything figured out starts to ease. We become more comfortable with ambiguity, more willing to take risks, and more open to whatever comes our way. But how do we make this shift in practice, especially when faced with major life decisions or transformative experiences? To answer that, let's turn to some contemporary philosophical insights that can help guide us through the unknown. As we move from the broad idea of experiencing life to the practical challenge of making choices, it's helpful to look at the work of contemporary philosopher Laurie Ann Paul. She's become well known for her exploration of what she calls transformative experiences. Those moments or decisions that fundamentally change who we are and how we see the world. Think about becoming a parent, moving to a new country, or even choosing a new career. These are choices that don't just add something to our lives, they change the very lens through which we experience everything else. Laurie Ann Paul argues that when we face these kinds of decisions, the usual tools of analysis, pros and cons lists, predictions about future happiness, careful research, often fall short. Why? Because we can't know in advance what it will be like to live through a transformative experience. The person we are before the choice is not the same as the person we'll become after. So there's no way to calculate the best path, because the criteria for what's best will change along with us. Instead of exhausting ourselves trying to find the perfect answer, Paul suggests that we focus on the value of revelation and discovery. Sometimes the most rational approach is to choose the path that we're most curious about, the one that calls to us, even if we can't predict exactly where it will lead. In this way, the process of living becomes less about solving for certainty and more about opening ourselves to new possibilities. This perspective can be both liberating and daunting, but it aligns beautifully with Kierkegaard's call to live forwards, embracing the unknown. So how do we bring this wisdom into our daily lives, especially when uncertainty feels overwhelming? Let's look at some practical ways to live with openness and presence. Now that we've explored the philosophical and psychological dimensions of living forwards and understanding backwards, let's bring these ideas down to earth. How do we actually live with uncertainty, and what does it look like to embrace experience rather than chase after perfect plans? Kierkegaard's wisdom, echoed by contemporary thinkers, suggests that the most rational and fulfilling way to live is to focus on what truly nourishes us, those experiences that bring meaning, connection, and joy. Instead of obsessing over every possible outcome or trying to engineer a flawless future, we can choose to invest our energy in the present. This might mean prioritizing relationships, spending real time with the people we care about, and being fully present in those moments. It could mean making space for creativity, whether that's through art, music, writing, or simply allowing ourselves to play and explore. It might be as simple as stepping outside to feel the sun on our face, or taking a quiet moment to appreciate the world around us. When we structure our lives around meaningful experiences, we're not ignoring the uncertainties or pretending that life is always easy. Instead, we're acknowledging that uncertainty is a given and choosing to respond with openness and curiosity. We become less concerned with whether we're making the right choice and more interested in what we can learn, feel, and discover along the way. This shift doesn't eliminate anxiety, but it does help us find a sense of purpose and fulfillment, even when the path ahead is unclear. Ultimately, living with uncertainty isn't about giving up on plans or goals. It's about holding them lightly, allowing ourselves to adapt, and remembering that the richness of life is found not in perfect outcomes, but in the depth of our experiences. As we come to the end of this exploration, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've uncovered together. Kierkegaard's timeless insight that life can only be understood backwards but must be lived forwards reminds us of the fundamental paradox at the heart of our existence. We move through life with incomplete information, never able to see the full picture until we look back, and even then, the present keeps slipping away, always just out of reach. The impossibility of full understanding isn't a flaw in the design, it's simply the way life unfolds. But within this uncertainty lies a powerful invitation. Instead of exhausting ourselves in the pursuit of control or perfect answers, we can choose to embrace experience as it comes. We can let go of the need to solve every problem in advance and instead focus on being present, open, and engaged with the world around us. Meaning isn't something we find by mapping out every step. It's something we create by showing up fully for the moments that matter. So as you move forward in your own life, remember that uncertainty is not your enemy. It's a companion on the journey, a reminder that you are alive and in motion. Trust that understanding will come in its own time, and allow yourself to live with curiosity, courage, and compassion. In doing so, you'll be honoring Kierkegaard's enduring wisdom and perhaps discovering your own along the way.